You join us in a moment of silence. All right. Next, do the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Second.
Second.
Ms. Moore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, approval of the consent agenda.
Move we approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Second. Second. Mr. Hodge. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Have any visitors? No visitors. Okay. Recognition. We've already done the first one. I made them wait 2 hours last night.
We won't do it with the next one.
Okay.
All right, we'd like to recognize our art student recognition. Now, I'd also like to say before we call Ms. Halford up, if you hadn't had the opportunity to go out in our hallways and look at some of this art that some of our students have provided us here at the central office, I'm constantly amazed of how talented our young people are. I mean, it's amazing. People come in, visitors come into our office, and they're always remarking on the talent that our students have. But at this time, I'm going to call Ms. Halford up, our Fine Arts Coordinator.
To celebrate the visual arts. And it's a time to acknowledge and celebrate the importance of art in our schools as an integral part of a well-rounded education, as well as honor the student artists who have created the outstanding work we will see in the building tonight. In addition to the incredible works we see displayed this evening, you can see many more at the Rutherford County Schools All-County Art Show, which is on display now through April 5th at the Bradley Academy Museum and Cultural Center in downtown Murfreesboro. It is now my privilege to introduce to you the students whose artwork is displayed here this evening. These students have demonstrated great creativity and craftsmanship, and their works have been selected to represent their schools in this display because of their outstanding quality. These works will remain on display in the central office building through the end of the year. So students, when I call your name, please come forward to receive your certificate of recognition up here with Dr. Anthony, and you're going to form a line starting where she's standing, going right in front of the board members here. And parents, this will give you a great opportunity to take some pictures. And audience, please hold your applause until each name has been called. There are 62 names, so we might get a little tired of clapping if we go between each one. So we'll hold our applause until all students have been called. From Markfield Elementary School, Evan Parnell. From Blackman Elementary School, Ariel Robinson. From Browns Chapel Elementary School, Lily B. Dunaway. From Buchanan Elementary School, Avea Hatton. From Cedar Grove Elementary School, Bennett Mass. From Christiana Elementary School, Bryson Abshire. From David Urey Elementary School, Elizabeth Green. From Eagleville School, Ashley Underwood. From Campus School, Deacon Flowers. From John Coleman Elementary School, David Medina Rodriguez. From Kissel Elementary School, Jacob Lawrence. From Las Casas Elementary School, Bryson Horner. From Laverne Lake Elementary School, Esther Lopez. From Laverne Primary School, Sophia Crawford. From McFadden School of Excellence, Claire Erskine. From Rock Spring Elementary School, Ian Flowers. Carolyn Garner. From Smyrna Primary School, Melody Johnson. From Stewart's Creek Elementary School, Ty Trumbauer. From Stewartsboro Elementary School, Jess Lay. From Thurman Francis Arts Academy, Moira Onstead. From Walter Hill Elementary School, London Rapp. From Wilson Elementary School, Kaylin Carlson. From Blackman Middle School, Fernanda Moretos Gomez. From Blackman Middle School, Emily Gerlach. From Central Magnet School, Rula Plummer. From Christiana Middle School, Mia Sanders. From Eagleville School, Annalyn Trail. From Laverne Middle School, Madison Anderson. From Oakland Middle School, Lily Amstead. From Rock Springs Middle School, Melanie Rodriguez. From Rock Springs Middle School, Jalicia Burns. From Rockville Middle School, Anna Ruiz. From Rocky Fork Middle School, Meredith Murphy. From Siegel Middle School, McKinley Lyons. From Siegel Middle School, Carolina Garcia. From Smyrna Middle School, Isaac Pandosha. From Stewart's Creek Middle School, Victoria Beatty. From Stewart's Creek Middle School, Logan Campbell. From Thurman Francis Arts Academy, Ava Stafford. From Woodward Buchanan Middle School, Pablo Morales. From Woodward Buchanan Middle School, Rush Crabtree. From Blackman High School, Daniel Parks. From Blackman High School, Maria Lolos. From Central Magnet School, Teresa Fonsaya. From Eagleville School, Shelby Siddons. From Eagleville School, Bailey Elliott. From Laverne High School, Valerie Compens Rojas. From Oakland High School, Jediah Fondren Johnson. From Oakland High School, Jessica Guerrero. From Riverdale High School, Nerut Zabuloni. From Riverdale High School, Skylar Atwell. From Riverdale High School, Skylar Schumann. From Riverdale High School, Lauren Baraboo. From Siegel High School, Shaylin Campbell. From Siegel High School, Isabella Pentagonza. From Smyrna High School, Braden Knight. From Smyrna High School, Nura Eruis. And from Stewart's Creek High School, Judd Cheney. Let's give all of these students a round.
Ms. Alford, would you mind informing the board about the grant that you won, or you won for our system?
Absolutely, and students, I know you probably feel awkward standing here. Do we want to let parents get a picture real quick, and then I'll inform the board? Parents,
absolutely.
if you want to get a picture, I'll get out of the way. Cumberland region. We are very excited that our music programs will benefit from a $124,000 award over the next 3 years that will be used to send some of our teachers for relevant professional development in their content area to bring back to our students, and also to do a inventory analysis and repair and replace program for our district's musical instruments. So we're very excited that we are among the first recipients of this state-of-the-art grant.
This grant application was very tedious, and I sat in an interview that Ms. Halford had with those that were conducting, and she did a fabulous job. We appreciate what you're doing for our kids.
Also, parents, was filmed tonight and will be on YouTube tomorrow. Is that correct?
Probably within an hour of close tonight.
It's on right now.
So, all right, we'll move right along here. Okay. YMCA site approval.
Yeah, YMCA site approval for Rocky Fork Elementary School. The YMCA Middle Tennessee has requested an opportunity to provide after-school and summer services at Rocky Fork Elementary School. Pursuant to the current contract, YMCA will pay the Rutherford County School Board of Education $2 per week per child based on an average number of children in attendance each week from the 2019 school year through the summer of 2021. If approved, this will be the 25th Rutherford County school hosting the YMCA. Motion to approve the request for the expansion of YMCA after-school and summer services to Rocky Fork Elementary School as presented.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
do we know how much they charge a week?
No, sir, I do not. Mr. Sandvig might know.
Ms. Bush took care of that contract, and I don't remember the discussions of cost, but we can get that for you.
Yes, I can pull the contract. I believe it was 50 to 60, but I can double check that contract. I can go pull it now.
Okay. Well, I think before I would like to know that. I would like to know how much they charge a week. I'm also wondering who counts the number of children that are there each week. I'm very interested in who counts. Does anybody know who counts?
I'm gonna take a wild guess with that. Is,
Yes, sir.
someone with the YMCA?
I would think that would be right. I don't know that, but does that not give anyone pause? I mean, I'm just asking.
Yeah?
I don't believe I'm going to support this, and you all go ahead if you want to. I'd like to have the answer to those two questions before we go any further. I think it's, and I don't think we're in an emergency situation here. I don't think that has to be approved tonight necessarily, but that's okay. You've read the recommendation. If we've got a motion, that's all right.
Would you like to hold off until future meeting?
No, go ahead. It's okay with me. I'm not going to make no.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Would it be helpful at all, Mr. Jordan, if, are we asking, do we do any kind of an audit on the numbers, I guess, is the question, maybe, or part of it?
Well,
We get any kind of reporting back?
as you are absolutely aware, we provide just about everything for this program. They use a lot of our PE equipment and some of their own. They use our building, restrooms, whatever, for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they're going to charge really 40 cents a day, $2 per week for each child. That just doesn't seem like very much to me. I mean, and perhaps I'm mistaken on that. Maybe that's plenty, but they use. I'm going back, and I don't know Mr. Young remembers or not, he chaired the committee, and I don't remember what they were charging, but we did go through all that. I know that.
I want to think we wasn't receiving anything from the YMCA at one time.
Right.
And we finally got a little bit out of them. I don't know that it's in proportion with what services we're providing here.
Mike, didn't we get cleaning supplies and a couple of $1,000s a year? I'm pretty sure that figure is right, to help the school system with that, which is, by the way, almost nothing, really.
Paige, do you have?
I do. It seems to vary between schools. The numbers that I was able to find, it's not set out in our contract what they charge the students, but at Barfield and Christiana, they usually do $53 per week, $39 before school if they're doing before school service, and $57 for before and after. So on average, about $53 a week is what they averaged out for their students. It looks like they said that they had 1,400 total enrolled for our jurisdiction when we were negotiating the contract at its last renewal, which would have been May of 2018.
Is there a cost associated to the parents?
Yes, the parents pay the YMCA directly.
Is it what you were referencing, $53?
That's right,
or
yes.
Is it morning and afternoon?
They have both services, and they vary between schools of what they charge, but it's usually in the $50 to $55 range for after school or for both. And then they also have just if you only want the morning, they have a separate fee for that. It looks like they determine that probably on space limitations as well as the needs of each school, and have a range in that.
Yeah, it may be based on the salary of the parent, the economic condition of the parents.
That's right.
I can remember years ago, this had to be way a long time, the first time Cedar Grove was open, and we used it because my daughter went to Cedar Grove. And they did more than just roll out a ball and stuff like that. They did remediation, some tutorial type things, and it was just every student. The students there were actually the students there at that school.
Yes, it's school-specific, and it's limited to the students that attend. And any employee of the state or any parent who have a YMCA membership also receive a 20% discount on that enrollment cost.
Do they pay this amount, the $2 per week right now, at wherever else that they have it, which is 24 other schools? Do they pay that?
They do. For the 2018 to 2019 school year, including the summer, they pay $1.50 per week based on the average numbers of students in attendance each week, which is maintained by the YMCA, as I think we all guessed. But it does increase. So for the 19 to 20 school year and the 20 to 21st school year, it is $2 per week. So because this school system will be opening for our next school, they fall under the $2. So right now, they're doing $1.50, but that will go up across the board for all of our programs.
Is this something that we have ever looked at as far as maybe bringing in-house?
We did, yes, sir.
And why did we not pursue it?
The city schools, I believe, do that, and it was not always as profitable as some of its proponents made it out to be. Like, at least one year, they had a fairly major loss.
That was one of the things we looked at, but in addition to, by the time we bring on the staff, they benefited staff to do it for us.
I think it's current staff, they already getting benefits. We're just offering it to them as additional hours, maybe. And then,
It would be overtime, but, yeah. For most of our staff, it would cross.
who knows, we might could even use a sub to do this, I don't know. But $70,000 a week is what, if it's 1,400 kids, $50 a week, I mean, we're looking at about $70,000 a week here that, and if YMCA can afford to do it, I would think we could afford to do it.
Pardon?
If YMCA can do it and come out okay and not go in the hole, I think we could probably do it, but
I don't think that everybody pays $50, though. I think it's based on their ability to pay.
Yes, they do accommodate our students who might be in a low-income household or students who have reduced fee lunches. All of those things are considered. And so they offer this, obviously some of our more at-risk students we want to incorporate in that program because often they have working parents. So the program is a huge asset to some of our families who probably wouldn't be able to afford after-school care elsewhere. And some of those fees also are set out in state policy where we couldn't necessarily enforce collection of those fees from those students, depending situation by situation. So that helps us there too, in that we wouldn't have to seek collection of certain fees, that has been put with another entity.
And we also had the concern when we were discussing getting a stream of money coming into us to offset some of the costs. The reality that probably whatever fees we started charging would be passed on to the parents. So that was also in the back of our minds at the time.
we open this up for bidding? Is there other vendors out there that get opportunity to bid on this besides YMCA?
I can't hear, I'm sorry.
No other groups have ever approached us then inquiring or asking about providing that kind of service?
If they have, they've been profit groups. We've gotten some, I think we've gotten the occasional, someone interested in possibly doing this.
I don't think we've ever had anyone.
So how did we come up with the $2 figure? I mean, where did that come from?
I think it was just trying to come up with something to offset some of the additional costs.
Building costs and things?
Do we know what it costs us? I mean, to that point, do we have any way of knowing?
We came up with some,
It would be strictly utilities, water, sewer, gas. The lights are usually,
yeah.
by the time these children are picked up, the lights are usually still on because our custodial staff is there. So you would have a little bit of water or heat, and air would typically still be on too, even if it's at a step-down rate. So
What's the latest? Is it 5:30, 6 o'clock?
it becomes more of a service for the parents of that school. Then I'm not going to say they're not making a little bit of money, but I don't know.
And if it helps, the original contract before we went to this tiered payment system, we were only requesting $2,000 for the restocking of janitorial supplies. And so this was, that didn't, exactly what Mr. Lee's talked about, didn't take into consideration some of the ancillary expenses. So this contract was renegotiated in 2017 in order to account for some of those increased costs. And it does state here that they do offer this service regardless of a parent's or child's ability to pay. So if they can't pay at all, they will still take a child who is in need.
That's a lot. I mean, that means.
I think they would,
And predominantly, a lot of these certain schools are at our Title I schools.
I don't want to.
And I'd be scared to say that probably 80% of those children are not paid.
Right.
And those parents are the ones that are really struggling. And they're both working. And it does help, and that's speaking from a husband and a wife who has been in the elementary and the middle and at Title I schools. And one of the first things that those parents ask when they register their child is, do you offer after-school care? And when we tell them the YMCA, they know that it's based on their free lunch, they're free. So it gives them something so they can come pick their child. And it's a safe place.
When we looked at this, I guess it's been 3 years now, Ms. Young?
At least, yeah.
And we were faced with, I don't know how many, but dozens and dozens of various groups that used our facilities for whatever, sometimes once a year, sometimes lots of times during the year. And as you all are aware, because we vote on them, and we'll vote on some tonight, some we approved, some we did not, and Ms. Bush was the initial person that looked at all of that. And we were trying to do a number of things. We were trying to recoup our costs on the use of our buildings and sometimes our cafeterias and sometimes outside stuff and where we had to clean up or whatever. But we weren't, it was a fine line that we had because we didn't want to make any money. We weren't trying to make any money off these people. Almost all of whom were doing some great work. Now that I've said that, let me say this. There were two groups that just jumped off the page at me as to people that I thought were getting a really good deal, and the taxpayers were paying for it. And one of them was AAU basketball, and the other one was YMCA. And I know that we charge something for both those groups now. But boy, this is a big unknown. See, we've already passed a number of things here that we don't know. We don't know how much they charge. We do know that figure. We know that. But we don't know how often they charge you, or if people get in do free. We don't really know all that. It just really troubles me. And who counts the number when they come in the door? I mean, there's nobody there but them.
I mean, they can turn over financials on those things.
Absolutely. They've been very open with working with us, and I'd be happy to get that information from their advisor. And I know that principals do keep records of who is in the YMCA program, so they know which students are supposed to be remaining on campus for transportation purposes and for emergency. So the school does, at least at some level, maintain a file of which student is enrolled in the YMCA. So at least we could double check that. But you're right, whether they participate every week, it might be a harder question.
Do you have the mission statement for the YMCA?
Yes, they included that in their older contract version, which is that the YMCA Fund Company, before and after school programs, agrees that it shall operate and be a program for all children, regardless of their ability to pay, in accordance with the YMCA Open Doors program. So that's one of the things they incorporated. I know that they have more mission statements on their website that I can pull.
Ms. Page, one other thing, do we know if they're being reimbursed by another program since it is part of the Title I, or is there another government program that actually the YMCA is being reimbursed?
I'm not sure. That's something I could also talk with the representative at the YMCA. I know that they're in a position right now where obviously they're not in the space since we're still in that process, and so it may be something that we could get more information and table this and bring it to the next meeting in the summer.
I would like more information, and as a parent who worked downtown and my son got out of school at 2:30 or 3 o'clock, those after-school programs are very important. So I think we would probably be more comfortable with more information and, likely to approve this if we felt comfortable with it.
They do not receive any title money. I mean, they don't get anything through title. And I doubt very seriously that they get anything. They don't receive it from not from our title. They may receive some subsidies from.
Right, that's my question.
Probably it's a nonprofit thing where they're receiving it for gifts, pledges. Right.
The term of this contract goes through the end of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
School year.
Right, and the contract indicates that they can add locations just at the approval of the director of schools. And we thought it would be most appropriate to bring to the board.
I would be in favor of tabling this until we get more information.
Thank you. I was just going to change my mind and say that as well. Do we have a motion on the floor already? Just a recommendation? No. Do you have a motion? Okay. You making a motion to table?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Table to the next meeting, correct? All right. Stop It Solutions.
Stop It Solutions, tab 2. Stop It is a mobile and web-based incident software that allows students and administration to communicate anonymously to maintain a positive school climate. Students can report anonymously via a mobile app or a phone hotline service for bullying and cyberbullying, inappropriate teacher-student relations, violence and threats, hazing, weapons possessions, drug and alcohol, substance abuse, and intolerance and discrimination. This package also includes dedicated incident screening service, which reviews and triages incoming reports. Stop It will provide a streamlined process and improve the efficiency and effectiveness of investigations with Stop It, a case management system. Contract details, August the 1st, 2019 through July the 31st, 2020. Total contract fees equal $25,850. Motion to approve Title IV funds to pay for Stop It Solutions, mobile and web-based incident software to allow student and administrators to communicate anonymously to maintain a positive school climate. Title IV funds will pay 100% of this contract.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if the board would indulge me just a minute, I would like to propose tabling this until our first April board meeting. I know this is Title IV money, but I myself haven't had enough time to really do my due diligence on this, and we don't want to lose the money, and I understand the deadline is at the end of April. Are there any other board members that would be interested?
What's the deadline on this?
What's the deadline, Mr. Krim? All right. One thing I would add is when we went to the training about 2 or 3 weeks ago, this was being used throughout the state of Tennessee. Also, Homeland Security had recommended it. One of the things I think Mr. Krim mentioned last night was the triaging part of it, you know, because there was some concern about these false alarms, these false reports. You might want to speak on that a little bit.
Right. We looked at 3 other services, Safe Schools, Blackboard, and School Messenger. None of these had the triaging feature. And as far as I know, these are the basic ones in the realm at this point for school safety. Without that triaging function, that would mean that every threat, whether it be a minor threat or a more exigent threat, would be delivered directly to the principal and myself and possibly other people, irrespective of the time. My concern with that is that we would become accustomed to receiving these during the day and we would not act on those, so we would not necessarily know the difference between a minor threat and an exigent threat. This service further allows two-way dialogue between the anonymous or non-anonymous poster, up to their choice, and the triaging service. So they can ask more questions. Additionally, the principal or whoever else is getting this could ask more questions as well of the person. So if they were trying to get more information or more clarity on something, the person could still respond back to that anonymously.
One thing I want to add as I thought about this after last night is we get a lot of our information through social media, and sometimes it's correct and sometimes it's incorrect. We had an issue earlier in the year where it was at one school, and by the time it got through Facebook, all that stuff, it was at 10 schools with 10 different scenarios. So it is something that it can be directly go to us so that we can address the threat very quickly without having to sift through misinformation.
Correct. And if it's an earlier threat that's recirculating, the triage people will also have record of that and can advise us that this is recirculating again. And obviously, the exigence would not exist at that point.
I think that's great, and I think you're on the right trail. I think you've done a lot of due diligence. Like I said, I haven't. But talking to you earlier, you said that we had a pot of money that need to be spent. Does that include the balance of that fund on the Title IV?
The money was originally designated for Navigate Prepared. It has to be used for an app. It is delineated in the Title IV grant as app money. So I had to find another grant that we could use it for within the time frame, which was short, and look at these and try to vet them as best we could in a short period of time. The remaining monies, to my understanding, are going to other sources, but Mr. Gullion could speak to that with more clarity. I don't know what he's done with that.
Well, let's kind of get away from a pot of money. I don't know if we ever have a pot of money. Okay.
Would be nice.
It'd be nice to have a pot of money.
Allocated.
Yeah.
But to my point, I would like to see that, and this just appeared on the agenda, and we do have till the end of April too. And I know I don't want to run it up to the end of April, but we do have 2 school board meetings, a working session, and a school board meeting on the 9th and the 10th.
Can I just ask a question to the app? I don't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. No, go ahead.
This is for students and teachers, so this will be
Yes.
used throughout the day, so on their mobile devices, or?
It's primarily for students, but it can be used by any school person. It's an app that you can sign up for, and you can, once you're in it, it's completely anonymous if you wish.
So how are we going to determine that and maybe you covered this last night, and I apologize if I just didn't catch it, but how are we going to determine that those are actually students? Parents won't have access to this. What if a parent has a concern? We go through the same channels?
They can, yes.
Or they won't
can-
have access
They
to
can
this.
sign into it. If a
Okay.
parent has a concern and they become aware of it, then they can let us know directly as well, obviously.
Right.
The main function on this is for a student who becomes aware of a fellow student who's made a threat, whether it be minor or exigent, to be able to report that threat quickly and directly to us so that we can act on it and look into it and make sure it's either valid or not valid at that point. So it's primarily for students, but a teacher could also sign up for it. It isn't specific. The app is open to anybody, basically.
But this doesn't interface with our social media. It's
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. It's not a social media monitoring service at all.
But we're still looking at something like
We're looking at some options for that, yes, ma'am. That's a little more of a dicey field.
You, all your references on the sheet you gave us last night, you talked to them?
I talked to several people from Grundy. There was a person from Grundy County. I talked to some people from Wilson County when I was at the meeting 2 weeks ago at the TOS, or the Sigma Threat Assessment as well.
Do you know if any of those people have had, it's been used?
Yes, several of these school systems have had it for several years.
Okay.
The concern I had was, are we going to get a lot of false threats? And as an officer, that always was something that was really difficult to deal with. And they said they did not have those experiences except right in the beginning, and he said they weren't major. It was more like, not a minor threat, more a bullying sort of thing that they had to look into. They were all favorable about it. And in 38 counties in the state of Tennessee, to me, is fairly impressive.
Can I ask about the triage component?
Yes.
Is somebody going to be monitoring that, or will it like pop up on the principal's, like?
The triage, what it does, it's a intermediary between the poster, the original source, and the recipient. So what they do when the message is sent, it goes to the triage, not to the recipient. Triage then looks into it, determines exigence on it, whether it's a high or low level threat, and notifies accordingly. If it's something that can be held because it's, let's say, a bullying, student one's bullying student two, I wanted to make you aware of it, or I'm being bullied, that could be held and is emailed to the principal the next day for investigation. Whereas if it's an exigent threat, that would be something, if there was a time factor to it, they would be notifying both the principal, myself, and the police.
And who conducts the triage? So,
They have a specific source and located in New Jersey that actually does this 24/7.
When they send it, it's going to you.
It's going to go to me and the principal. If it's exigent, it'll also go to the police.
And so some of these other counties have been using it for several years.
Several years, yes. And it's very much supported by the state of Tennessee. They were the original source in talking. When I was looking at some options for this, they were the ones that recommended this. The Department of Education Safe Schools Director mentioned it. And Homeland Security, correct. She does have a background in that as well. So that's where it started.
This has been something that Homeland Security has looked at this system in this company, and they've given it at least their theoretical stamp of approval, if
Yes,
not
ma'am.
officially.
Yes.
Couple more questions, if I may. I want to go back to the question that I asked last night with the whole anonymous piece of this, and that's still kind of nagging me. And you may have answered it, and I didn't get the answer. But so if I'm a student and I make a report on this app, so I heard so-and-so threaten so-and-so in the bathroom, but I don't want to use my name.
Yes.
You know, through that triage and that investigation process, and let's say it is a serious report that gets everybody's attention, starts taking up everybody's time, and is later determined to be false, and we talked about the potential for prosecution or whatever for false reports. Well, if they're reporting it anonymously, I mean, how much credibility or credence and I understand the importance of saying, okay, we'll protect you, but in other words, where does it reach a point where it's like, okay, well, you know, you're going to have to come forward and tell us who you are so we can get a witness statement or, you know, whatever.
If we have what I call an exigent threat, something that's material in nature, not a bullying threat, then our job would be to go back and start looking for witnesses. Our job is police. And I'm going over to being a police officer right now. Our job would be to start looking for witnesses and interviewing them and tracking this back to the source. This app preserves anonymity with that student. I asked those questions if it was possible to trace this back in some way or another, and they said if it's anonymous, it's not easy. It's theoretically possible, but not easy. It would have to go back to, you'd have to go back actually to the phone companies and try to subpoena those records.
And so when a post is made, it goes directly to their triage.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
not something that's posted where other people that have
No, ma'am.
access to that.
It goes to their triage.
I
and then
figured
to
that,
the
but I just
appointed
wanted to be
parties,
sure.
Depending on the risk level, that we and they get together and assign a risk level to different sorts of threats.
Okay. All right, thank you.
This contract is only for a year, so
Yes,
if
ma'am.
we get into it and we decide this doesn't work for us, then
I was clear with them on just starting with a year. I did talk to him about what if we have more students next year. He said the price will not change. He said this is a static amount. One of the things in the contract, it doesn't quite match the number of students that we have in this county, and I've talked to him about that. He said I can change it if you want, but it isn't going to change the final figure. It isn't based. It's based on the number of students we have, but it isn't on a per student cost.
And again, this is coming out of grant money,
Yes, ma'am.
that there was a stipulation in that grant money, I could use that other terminology, that it had to be used on some sort of an app that related to what, safety
School
and
safety.
security?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I would think if you're able to take care of one instance, I think the whole thing would be worthwhile. I also agree with Ms. Moore that Title IV money, it's not coming out of our operation, but my guess is over a period of time, over a period of years, you're gonna probably have some success would be my guess, somewhere along the line.
Mr. Hodge, when I talked to these other counties, they said they've had quite a few successes. With the younger set, it's the bullying, and with the older set, it's the more exigent threats that might come along. And they have solved several serious threats with it.
Well, I think the anonymous probably helps more than anything. You get some of the false reports. You
That was, the false reports were one of my first questions. Being an officer, I've dealt with those a lot, and I was concerned about that. But some of those fears were allayed by talking to some of these other people and hearing that, in these other counties, and hearing that outside of the out-the-chute period, they hadn't had any recurrence of that. They do quite a bit of education. They give each school, I think there's 20 posters to put up, and they will actually put together a curriculum that we can go into the schools and do, present to the children so they can know how to use it. And, you know, we don't really share every bit of the anonymity with them.
Any assurance at all that, you know, let's say at the end of this year, at the end of the contract year, you're pleased, you know, we've had good success with it. Do we have any guarantees that the money will continue to be available through Title IV and a grant, or that we might have to revert to pulling it out of our budget somewhere?
The only predication I know on that is that if Title IV money goes away, and Mr. Gullion said there was some possibility of that in the future, but it's not been noted yet as to when that might be, that might become an issue at that time.
We would still be having funding on reoccurring safe school money that we would have. And in fact, I think Governor Lee is even putting more into it. Yeah, more recurring.
And there's some good news ahead for school safety. I met with Brenna Morse today, and she indicated that the future is bright, the near future.
You might want to tell who she is.
Brenna Morse is the school safety director. She's in the Department of Education School Safety Director. She told me everything, as much as she could, what the near future holds for us.
The state of Tennessee is really putting forth a good effort in that part of school safety. When we were at that one meeting, they had two speakers. One was the Secret Service, ex-Secret Service,
Yes.
and one was CSI.
One was former FBI.
FBI.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, do we have a motion on this?
Oh, we had a motion to table. Was that not a motion? I don't care, I'm just asking.
I asked to table, so, but I didn't make the motion.
Okay,
So we're,
is it a motion?
I say motion to table, but
Okay, we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
It'd make Mr. Sharp feel better to wait a couple of weeks for our next meeting. I'll second that motion.
Motion been made to table and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next meeting will be the 10th.
the 10th.
I think we probably need to find out what you need to bring back. Okay, so you might want to go back up there and
So is this going to allow us time to still meet that end of April deadline?
If we can get the contract signed immediately.
The contract's pretty much already there.
Yes, and Ms.
Does it
Page,
still
Ms.
need-
Page has looked at it, and it's
Is there any
satisfactory.
information that he can get that would help out prior to coming back? I mean, is there anything that you can provide? I mean,
I've provided an executive summary package for you all, and that tells you how it works.
That was in the email.
If there's something else I can get, I'm sure they'd be glad to give it for us.
Yeah, I just understood Ms. Sharp just wanted some time to do her homework, and then she'll be back ready to make a decision.
Yeah, on the 9th.
Well,
We'll discuss
would
it
the
again.
10th give you plenty of time to
Oh,
look?
absolutely, yes.
And that would give you 2 weeks
We
to
still have time
get
to
it
get the
finished?
contract signed, yes.
Okay. We'll put that on the 10th, Ms. Michaels. Thank you. All right, parent notification system.
Parent notification system contract. Rutherford County Schools conducted an RFP in November of 2018 for its parent notification system. The district has been using Schoolmaster West for the past 11 years. A committee made up of central office personnel and principals have evaluated the proposals and selected Schoolmaster West as the best service provider for Rutherford County Schools. The notification system provides the district with the ability to send messages directly to parents via phone, email, text, newsletters, and through social media, and is an invaluable component of the district's communication plan. Previously, the service through School Messenger West cost the district $66,500 annually. The new proposal will save the district $9,000 at the rate of $1.25 per student for the total first-year cost of $57,500. Motion to approve School Messenger West to continue providing the parent notification to Rutherford County Schools at a price of $1.25 per student as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Any questions? All in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Facilities use.
All right, pursuant to Board Policy 3.206, public education schools, institutions, post-secondary education institutions, private universities and colleges, governmental entities or agencies that provide benefits to the Rutherford County school system or have an in-kind relationship approved by the Director of Schools may request the Board of Education to allow an exemption from the use of facilities fee, which the Board may allow or deny based upon the details of the specific requests. The following groups qualify for the exemption: Rutherford County Works, City Cyber Ambassador Boot Camp at Stewart Creek High School, Boy Scout Troop 320 Annual Silent Auction and Spaghetti Dinner at Rockville Elementary, Blackman Youth Football / Cheer League 2019 preseason and season at Blackman Elementary School, Blackman Middle School, and Blackman High School. Motion to approve the policy. Motion to approve the following groups requesting the waivers for the use of the facilities pursuant to policy 3.206.
Motion to approve. Thank you, Mr. Hodge. Second.
Second.
Ms. Sharp, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Financial matters.
Financial matters, substitute teacher staffing, we're tabling that. We're bringing that back. I'm at the wrong one here, okay? Student information system. Our current student information system, iNow, will not meet the Tennessee Department of Education EdFi data transmission requirements next year. Tennessee school districts currently using Chalkable Student Information System, iNow, must select a new student information system vendor. After meeting with and reviewing the 4 state-approved vendors, the recommendation is to select Skyward. The cost to migrate all data from iNow to Skyward, beginning with the 2006-2007 school year to the present year, including implementation and training for the district, is $256,125. The per-student cost for 2019-2020 is $4.25 per student based on 45,844 ADM for the total cost of $194,837. The cost for year 2 and year 3 will not exceed $4.50 per student. Included in the contract is an LMS API at the cost of $11,461. The LMS API will be used to facilitate data transmission between student management system and a third-party application and learning management system used by the district. The total cost for the 2019-20 school year is $206,298. Motion to approve the selection of Skyward software for the system student information system beginning with the 2019-20 school year.
Have a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Second. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. UPS budget amendment.
This next amendment is to get started on the conversion, the data conversion before 2019-20 school year. This is amendment funds $256,125 for the data conversion costs the system will have when we change to the new attendance system that will need to be in place for the 2019-20 school year. Staying with our existing system will not be an option. However, the conversion cost needs to be in place by April so that the system switchover can be completed before the school starts. The funding source is unexpected but already budgeted dollars for our on-the-job injury program, which is account 72310-513. The cost of the conversion cost will be in addition to the account 72110-399. Attendance contracted services. Motion to amend the general purpose school budget by increasing account 72110-399, attendance contract services by $256,125, and to decrease the on-the-job injury program account 72310-513 by the same amount as presented.
Motion to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Second.
Second.
Mr. Young. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's see here. Okay, we went over medical insurance last night. Y'all have anything else you want to talk about? Okay. Facilities.
Our facilities, A, capital projects requests. Maintenance is requesting to reallocate $500,000 in capital project funds for the chiller replacement at Central Magnet to Blackman High School. Now, the two chillers at Blackman are nearing failure, and maintenance believes that they can delay the request for Central Magnet into the 2019-20 budget year. This request will also have to be approved by the county commission. Motion to change the $500,000 budgeted to Central Magnet chiller in the capital projects fund so that the chiller at Blackman High can be replaced.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Rocky Fork.
All right. 13B, Rocky Fork Middle School dugouts. The staff at Rocky Fork Middle School is requesting to begin construction of concrete block dugouts with one to have a storage facility as part of the structure. This request is of similar construction and design to the other middle school dugouts. Rocky Fork Middle was approved on October the 18th, 2018 for the baseball dugouts. Engineering and Construction has reviewed this request and find it to be acceptable. The projected cost for the project is $10,580 and will be at no cost to the board. Motion to approve Rocky Fork Middle request to build concrete block softball dugouts with attached storage as presented.
Motion to approve. Thank you, Mr. Hodge. Second. Mr. Johnson, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 14.
14, purchase of property for connection to the Holly Grove Road from the Matthews properties on tab 6. County Commission has previously approved the purchase of the Matthews property for Walter Hill for a new multi-school site. It would be beneficial for ingress and egress to the site to have a secondary access point to the site from Holly Grove Road. Sanford Campbell and Dolores Campbell, adjoining owners of the Matthews property, have agreed to sell a 100-foot wide strip to the Board of Education to allow connection road from the school site to Holly Grove Road. The 100-foot wide strip will consist of approximately 2 3/4 acres or less, and the purchase price would be at $42,500 per acre. This is the same price the Matthews are being paid for their property. Motion to approve the Board of Education purchasing a 100-foot wide strip of property from Sanford Campbell and Dolores Campbell to Holly Grove Road at a price of $42,500 per acre, subject to the county commission approval and funding, and authorizing the chairman of the board to sign the contract to that effect.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, some discussion before a motion's made. And Mr. Lee might be able to help with this. And it was my understanding that whatever it was that had been negotiated or done to improve this ingress egress was being donated. I'm a little surprised to see this on here as another, 80,000 plus expenditure. So I guess I'd like to understand it a little bit better. Was it initially offered to us at no cost? And if so, how did it get to this? And kind of help me visualize what we're talking about here and the importance of it to spend another $90,000 on it.
It's my understanding that when Mr. Clardy was originally negotiating with the Matthews property for that purchase, there was some discussion as to the potential that they would donate a 100-foot strip.
They being the Matthews?
Through those conversations, and I was not a party to those conversations or negotiations, that offer, whether it was made or not made, it was brought up. It was mentioned by Mr. Clardy. Now, whether that was or was not, or how they've decided that they didn't want to do that. So Mr. Clardy began to look for another way out, because we need we need two ways in and out. So the other option was to go to Holly Grove Road. And he worked with the neighbors there, and they were willing to sell it.
So we know for sure that the Matthews declined to do that regardless of what other conversations had taken place?
Mr. Clardy brought this up at the last county commission meeting when we were there, and informed the county commission that they did not want to do that now because Mr. Matthews, it was going to go in front of his home, split his farm in half, and that he had no interest at this time that his kids would sell the property, that he wasn't, the balance, and he didn't want to open gates and cross the road. And so that offer, it's the way I understood it,
That's the way it
was withdrawn.
stated at the meeting.
Are we pretty sure this is going to be it as far as money we're spending on this piece of property?
As far as land goes,
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that at this time. Based on, do we have the road that we need? Yes, ma'am. Do we think that we have the property we need? Yes, ma'am.
So will this be a separate purchase, or it would have to be since it's a different owner of the property, right?
It'd be two different purchases.
Okay.
Chairman.
And it's actually a better access road to our property. The other way, we would have had to go out on Jefferson Pike. This way, you're going out on a road that's nothing there but homes.
I guess part of my concern is, we fought such a hard battle for these two pieces of property at such drastically different pricing, and I understand it in part, still not necessarily sure I agree with all of it, but that's neither here nor there at this point. But why we didn't have this information to package it all together, and we're having to go back to the county commission, going back to the well again, saying, oops, okay, oops, but, we need another, $90,000 because now we need to purchase this for the ingress egress. I mean, they've questioned us so hard about all these different aspects of the land and even the less expensive land at Christiana, and now we've got this. So I'm sure they'll approve it. I guess I just kind of curious, did we not realize before we went before them to finalize the purchase of this land approval that we were going to need this?
When we went to Health and Ed, this was not on the table. When we went to Budget and Finance, it was on the table. So somewhere between Health and Ed and Budget and Finance, this situation arose. And that's all the knowledge that I have, because it wasn't discussed at Health and Ed when we originally went. And then somewhere in between, something happened.
I think it's predicated on how quickly do we need it. I mean, we don't have to purchase it. We're not building a school there anytime soon, maybe. And then you get back to the you know, you get back to the price.
Yeah, I mean, the school site is greatly enhanced by having a secondary access. You really need to have a secondary access to the school site. Mr. Clardy, they looked at other options going Jefferson Pike initially, but Mr. Clardy was able to negotiate with his adjoining neighbor. You know, he could not, there was negotiations were underway. He was not able to confirm whether or not he had an agreement with the Campbells to purchase his property until that agreement was reached. He went and reached an agreement with the Campbells, which gives this site a much better access to Holly Grove Road than was ever originally planned. So that in the end, the money being spent here enhances your basic site. So it is really a plus for the site to have this access on Holly Grove Road. You know, at the county commission, there were a lot of discussion about, you know, road improvements and things. You know, oftentimes we put schools where we have to put schools, and it's hard to get big acreage tracts anymore. So a lot of the areas we have to put schools in, the roads may not have caught up to the school site yet. So there may be improvements required to the local road areas. And one of the things that Mr. Clardy was able to do with respect to this 100-foot wide strip is find a good access point from the school site to give a good secondary access from a traffic flow standpoint to allow a different access point without having stacking on the Highway 231 under the Matthews property, and provide ingress and egress for emergency vehicles, things like that. So in the big scheme of things, spending, you know, another $90,000 on this or $100,000 is, in the big scheme of things, is not much to get the land you need for a good road to the property. It's well worth it for the site.
Well, and I'm not necessarily questioning the worth or the fact that we need it. Again, I guess just the whole, you know, when I look back on how this all played out with the commission, and the Christiana property became such a sticking point because they were so concerned about the roads. But I don't recall them asking about if we were going to have to spend more money on land or road access for this property. I think that's, why we didn't know about it or have an opportunity to bundle it together when we asked for the money to begin with. But at this juncture, I guess it's a moot point. I just wanted answers to that.
Well, the school system is better with this access point. So it's better to close this site with this additional property than without it, for sure.
Everything you just said, Mr. Reed, I'm absolutely confident is correct. I got that much faith in you, and what I know about it, I think I'm in agreement. Now, when we walked out of that courthouse the other night, they thought they were through with this piece of property.
Yeah.
And now that's exactly your point. And now, somebody, probably our director, is going to have to go back up there at some point and ask them for this nearly $120,000. You were being very generous with 90. And they're going to want to know one question: why didn't we know this 2 months ago? And we better have an answer for that. Now, I think they'll approve it, like Ms. Moore just said. I think they will, and you're right about being a much better site with that road. I don't think that's a debate.
Well, I think with the county commission concerned about traffic, and this will obviously help the traffic situation in that area, as a better site with that 100-foot wide connection.
And understand, I'm not meaning to shoot the messenger. And again, I just am back to Mr. Jordan's point too. You know, one of the concerns we kept hearing over and over as we were negotiating, going through the purchase of all these properties, and the things we went through with the commission was communication, and we need to start better planning and looking at these kind of things before we determine final land prices and all of that. So it's kind of like, to me, it's oh dear, well, we are coming back again now, and I just don't want to continue to put ourselves in that kind of a position.
Mr. Reed, help me out here. Would this funding not come from that amount of money that was borrowed for this purpose?
It will. The same allocation of funds for school sites would fund the acquisition of this property. It has already been approved by the county commission. The county commission would have to approve the purchase of this 100-foot wide strip.
But the money itself has already been borrowed for the purpose of this site, or these sites, though.
That is correct.
Was that $11 million that they tentatively approved?
10 something.
10? So there was still enough money left in that allocation after we purchased this and after we purchased Christiana?
Yes.
To cover this?
Correct.
Well, there's your answer.
There's supposed to be money left for the property out on 840 Amberville, that area too.
If I'm not mistaken, we're looking at somewhere around 3.5. Is it somewhere close to that? 3.5? 3.5 million, yes,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, to purchase the third site that we're looking for.
So this will be pulling out of that,
Yes,
then,
ma'am.
essentially.
Yes, ma'am.
But also, my guess, Mr. Reed, you probably know better than anyone, but this piece of land right here, what he's doing here with this acreage, he could probably get a whole lot more money for it than what he's asking. I mean, if we got that,
The Walker Hill property is a prime piece of property for sure. So there'll be a lot of developers who would like to have the Walker Hill site.
so in essence, I guess what I'm saying is that he's probably done us a favor also.
I did field some calls today, Holly Grove residents, and they were asking about the traffic as far as going out on 231, what our plans are as far as helping them get out. And then also a neighbor adjoining this piece of property was concerned about how close that egress and is going to be to their property line. Do we have any plats or anything showing how this road come out onto Holly Grove Road?
Well, the site plan, they're working the site plan now, and they're, of course, when it comes to designing roads and ingress and egress points onto Holly Grove Road, that'll be something that Mr. Lee will be working with the county engineer to make sure that's done in a way to minimize any kind of negative traffic impacts in the area. There's no doubt there'll be more traffic in the area after the school goes in than there are today. So that's a part of having a school site in the area, so you will have more traffic. But, you know, I think you heard a commitment from the county road superintendent and working with Trey Lee. I think they can look at the road situation and make sure you put in turn lanes and things like that that will mitigate against the traffic impact to the extent you can in the area.
I have a few questions, if you don't mind. Mr. Lee, when we build some of these secondary roads, it's often requested that, oh, maybe we don't want to open these. This will not be the case with this road. It will be open for regular use during the day, not just like a Stewart's Creek Road or, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It would be daily use.
And the other point, I think, and to Miss Moore's point, I had some trouble with this decision to begin with, I made very vocal. And yes, it might be very valuable land, but once we decided to buy that 100 acres out there for $42.5, we set a precedent. So the longer we wait on this now, our hands are tied. So, and I know it's not Mr. Lee's doing at all, but in the future, I think it would be very advantageous for us to get as much information up front, because this feels a little bit like we have all that rock again, which is what we tried to prevent, and it might not be as much, but, you know, to the point of the $42.5, the rest of the land that we're looking at in the county is going to be pretty pricey, I would argue. So what's left in that pot, we can't look at it like it's a pot, because we have to make that money stretch for another site, and we have to keep that in mind at the rate that the property values are. And this land, by the way, will be used as a comp, arguably, when the next appraiser values the next land we buy. So we've already set that precedent high, and developers should love us for what we've done here.
Before we vote on this, and this, I could do this during general discussion, but while we're on the subject of these pieces of property and the land, the county commission has already approved both of them. Where are we? Have we finalized the contracts and the closing on these pieces of land?
They're probably going to close the week after next. Everything, the contracts are underway. I would expect them to get signed maybe next week, and with closing the following week.
Essentially, what we're going to do is what we've already done. We went up there and told them where we were going to spend the money. And then they had questions, fine, about both pieces of property, sometimes extensive questions. Well, we're going to do that again. We're going to tell them what else we're going to buy with this money. I don't think that there's any, we're not asking them for a fresh $120,000. Now, I think what Ms. Johnson said a minute ago is about the pot of money is correct. I mean, that money's going to come from somewhere, and it's going to come out of what we've got left.
Correct.
But anyway, I think we probably have to do that.
Well, I mean, it's the only option we got right now. I mean,
Right.
my theory is to the general public, show us the land. I mean, we've always got the right down the road here that if we don't like the price, don't buy it. There he is, look, somebody out there's got something, bring it to us, let's look at it. And so far, we haven't any luck with it.
Anything else? Okay. Looking for a motion on this.
Move to approve.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Young. Mr. Jordan, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, general information.
Okay, general information, we got an addition we left out from the other night on the bail times for the new Rockville cluster. We didn't add on down. Of course, Rockville Elementary will be starting at 7:30 to 2:30. Rockville Middle, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Rockville High, 8:30 to 3:30. And then the bail times for Barfield will be 7:30 to 2:30. Riverdale will be from 8:30 to 3:30, and Rocky Fork Elementary is the one we left out. It will be also from 7:30 to 2:30.
Oh, is that on here now?
No, it isn't.
Oh, okay.
The ones we discussed last night all are. I, for some reason, forgot the other project that I have going at the moment and did not put the bell time for Rocky Fork Elementary on there. The Homer Pittard and the Christiana Elementary and Christiana Middle we discussed last night.
Okay. No insurance update, huh? Director's update.
Nothing is this time.
Okay. TLN, Ms. Johnson.
Well, this is my first time, so if you'll bear with me. The House Bill 939, Senate Bill 795, which is the ESA, commonly referred to, I don't have a whole lot of information. I searched the website today, interestingly enough, and there is no amendment, although the calendar says they're waiting for an amendment. I did talk to Ben at TSBA, and he tried to walk me through how to get to the amendment that makes the bill, which was incredibly difficult. But there is some information out there. It's my understanding there's going to be another amendment. So currently, it looks like it is just still a caption bill. Very broad, no fiscal note to the general public, but we understand that's obviously very different. Ms. Sharp has some more information on it, but they're working it. We're expecting more amendments on that piece of legislation. And there's no movement on it in the Senate currently, so.
Okay. You can let us know when you find out something.
I will.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Hodge?
I just got one piece of information, mine's nothing what Ms. Johnson and Ms. Moore been dealing with, they're gonna deal with. I'm glad y'all dealing from that end instead of me, but, this come out last Thursday, it's, Department of Education's budget for 2020, and, some interesting stuff in it. Basically, the large part of the budget, they're going to expand the education freedom, and I'll go into some more details on that. They're going to beef up safety, which that's good to see, and they're going to return power over educational decisions to those closest to the students. So, y'all have to tell me what that is. I don't think it'll be coming back to us, but it doesn't appear this way. Another interesting thing here, says for the first time the budget proposes an innovative approach to providing teachers the freedom and flexibility to chart their own course for professional development through teacher vouchers. I don't know what teacher voucher is. Anyway, education expert that know what a teacher voucher is. I can see where all this is going as you start breaking everything down, but the education freedom is basically freedom for American students to pursue their lifelong learning journeys in ways and places that work best for them. So y'all can figure out where that is, what we're dealing with right now. But if you get over here, basically it breaks it out as far as the amount of money that they're educational freedom scholarships. They provide up to $5 billion for these educational opportunities. 500 million for charter school programs. So, we sort of knew that was going on, but an interesting thing that they want to allot 107 million for magnet school programs, which is, I think, probably a good expenditure. And they're going to put 700 million for safe schools. And another encouraging thing, put 1.3 billion for career and technical, which I think that's great. Last year, they're putting 20 million, which is 12.6 million more than the fiscal year 19. So they're increasing that, which I thought that was interesting. But basically, that's all the information I got.
So it looks like that not only we have to watch the state, we have to watch the federal too. They're wearing us out, folks.
There was one thing that was on the draft portion of the accountability piece for the ESA, and it was where they were going to hold those accountable for the tests in math and in English. And the reason why they have to do that is that's the part that the feds require. The other assessments we put in our ESSA plan as a state. ACT or some of our science, social studies, and tests like that. So the draft portion looks like they get the streamlined portion of it. They get what the feds are requiring. But that would not omit us from still taking the whole complete set of assessments.
I was going to say, I mean, to me, they're claiming, at least my understanding is with these ESAs, that they're not using federal money, that this is going to be state money, that the governor's either going to come up with some other way. So how could they avoid our state assessments?
What they're doing is they're using that standard of the federal government as saying that in order that every, if they take any money, so that they're going to have to be assessed. They're using that part of saying they're assessing that portion of it. They're going to do the ELA, the math, but they're not including the additional assessments that we add on in our ESSA plan. Tennessee added those components to our ESSA plan.
Which still doesn't leave our teachers with a level playing field when they want to talk about competition. Those of us who looked at vouchers and ESAs for the last 4 or 5 years know that there's going to have to be some kind of assessment piece in there if you take money from the federal government. And I know we still have a local representative that's from our area that is still a yes vote on this. And this addendum is just really wide open. There's no accountability in there. It's kind of like they talk to every representative, and they've kind of put everything that a representative wanted in there. There's a lot of, since there's no physical note, but there's a lot of pork in it, and there's not a lot of accountability. So I'm asking our parents and our teachers and everybody in Rutherford County to contact our legislators and talk to them about it, because I don't care what they say, this will take money out of our county, and it'll take money out of our programs. And, you know, as much as our representatives want to talk about our teachers being competitive, they can't be competitive. We've regulated their classrooms so much they barely have time for just general instruction. And they need to start showing up in some of the classrooms and start asking questions to those of us that are on the ground before they start, in my opinion, before they start making laws.
Can we give that an amen?
Don't get me started.
I don't understand how, if you're a representative on the Hill or senator on the Hill, and you're sitting there in your office and you've got a resolution in your hand that is signed by the Murfreesboro City School Board and directors and our director and us and the entire county commission, and telling that we are in opposition to this. I just don't see how you can sit there and continue to vote yes. I just don't understand it.
Obviously, they're not listening.
Evidently not, and Ms. Sharp is probably on the right track here, and maybe we all are, I guess we are, of trying to get some pressure put on them because we have no lobbyist like the voucher program and charter school program has. We don't have, we've got one guy who's Tennessee School Board, who's extremely capable, but he's one guy. And then there's the rest of it. And I would encourage the general public, I know we've said this, I know I've said it, others of you have said it, but if we lose funding, it's going to have to be replaced or we're going to cut services. One of the two has got to happen. There's no way, because we can't go in debt. We're not going to borrow. And I can say this now because I have no idea. So I guess I can just say it. If part of the solution to this is to cut services, these parents aren't going to like it when we figure out where we're going to have to cut. Now, that's been done once. And Mr. Watson told me it was the hardest thing that he ever did as director. And Wayne Blair told me, Mr. Hodge might remember this, I'm not sure, that our test scores dropped as a result of that because we dropped aides, cut a lot of aides out of the program to make up that money. But anyway, something's going to go. I mean, we can't print money in this building, and the county commission is either going to have to replace all our lost dollars, and that'll mean a tax increase, or we're going to have to cut services, or some combination of the two. And I don't believe anybody's going to like either one of any of that. I'm going to say one more thing, and I promise to shut up. I don't know how you all felt. We have not discussed this at all as to what might possibly be cut. But we open the doors. I'm going to be very careful. I hope people are listening. We open the doors every single morning in this county at 40, whatever it is, 8 schools. It changes, seems like about every 3 weeks. And we open those doors for academics, for classes, for teachers, for courses, for programs, for all these things that we're trying to do for these students. And those things, to me, to Jeff Jordan by himself, I'm not going to vote to cut those first. I hope people heard what I said, because I think that's why we're here. I think, for academics. Thank you.
I'll have to agree with you, Mr. Jordan.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to take a turn here too, and then I'll promise I'll hush. But I was, in thinking about the charter school aspect of this, and I was listening to one of these talking head talk radio shows this morning at dark 30 as I was leaving for work, and they were carrying on quite a bit about, with the whole bashing our public education system and what a bad job we're doing, and how our teachers are always asking for more money, and how we've got our teachers union showing up in the legislators' offices. And they start talking about charter schools, and I think I want to talk about this more so, again, hopefully for the public that might be watching, the 50 or so maybe that might watch this video, again, to help them understand that the charter schools that they're proposing are not going to be private schools. They will be essentially what they refer to as public schools, but the public school entities, i.e. the Rutherford County Board of Education, whatever, will have essentially no say-so in how they're run, how they're staffed, what programs they offer. So what I would counter that with is to ask these parents and our constituents and the public out there to stop and think about, if they're so disappointed and so discouraged with our public school systems, why would anybody possibly think that the state Department of Education is going to do a better job educating our children in these charter schools than we're already doing here? And I'm done.
That's a wonderful question. I don't have an answer, but that's a good question.
I still haven't understood why they haven't come to this county to find out what we're doing to implement in these failing schools. They still aren't focused on the failing schools. The schools that are failing still have students sitting there. And we don't have a TSBA person putting money in our legislators' pockets like the outside interests do.
But they're very quick to criticize the fact that we're spending this money on the TSBA, when indeed, as you pointed out before, Mr. Young, because we're having to step up and defend our public schools, which we shouldn't have to.
Exactly.
It's very unfortunate.
Speaking of TSBA, and this will be my last point. Last week at one of the trainings that I attended, and it is in this opposing comment from Mr. Torres, Tennessee is one of the fastest improving states in education. And I asked the gentleman that was there from the Department of Education, well, if we are one of the fastest improving, why are we messing with it? Why aren't we pinpointing those areas that need the help? And that's the problem with legislation, is it just doesn't take care of those counties or those districts that need something done to them. It touches the whole state. And those of us that are doing a good job and have tons of people moving here every day, every week, and we're having to build new schools, begs the question, if we're doing such a good job, why are they messing with it?
I guess this must be general discussion.
We've morphed into general discussion.
Anything else?
I got one thing, just thinking earlier, when we were discussing, that grant in relation to the safety. Just thinking out loud, and I don't know what the board thinks about it, but, I know Mr. Grant's sitting over there. That's probably not a good word, but he's out there on the limb by himself, taking care of this, safety aspect of it. I know we've got a transportation committee, that works with Mr. Everett over there, as far as corresponding and everything. I know we've got, the insurance, I guess, we've got our two representatives here, but we got, Mr. Moore and Mr. Young and working through that a little bit. I just wonder if it possibly be a good idea to have some kind of subcommittee like transportation, something like that works with Mr. Cram, whether it be a board member, have a board member, administrator, teacher, or whatever. I was just thinking on this thing we dealt with tonight, where they could bounce that particular issue among themselves, and just a thought. I mean, I don't know if it's a good idea or bad idea, but I don't know what the board thinks, but I would think it probably is of a benefit somewhere.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because we are working on that right now. We'll know something on the next board meeting.
I think it's a great idea.
I would like to thank Mr. Sandberg for putting all this paperwork together. It's
Thank you.
a huge stack of paper here to go through.
All right. Any other board discussion? All right. No more discussion. We're adjourned.